Hi, everyone. Welcome to the call. I'm Sarah Schewitz, and I'm going to be leading this couples coaching call. We're going to be going over a topic, and I'm also going to be taking Q&A at the end. So if you can go ahead and if you're live with us on the call now, go ahead and share your name and where you're calling from in the chat box, and we'll give people a few minutes to hop on. Okay, and I'm going to hide this box. Let's see how I can do that. There we go, because it's kind of covering the screen. Put that over there. Okay. While we're giving people a few more minutes to jump on, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and who I am, where I'm from. My name is Dr. Sarah Schewitz, as I had said before, and I'm a psychologist and I specialize in couples therapy. So I've been working with couples and individuals since 2008. So I see a lot of people who are either in a relationship that's not working and they're coming as a couple, or they're coming as an individual because their significant other doesn't want to come to therapy. But the person usually feels like, okay, if I can work on myself and become happier with myself, maybe I'll see some improvement in my relationship. And many times that does happen. So I'm happy to work with both couples and individuals. And I've been doing so for close to 10 years now, believe it or not. And it's really a passion of mine. I love helping people love each other better. I have so much fun in session, especially when I'm seeing great progress. Of course, that's the most fulfilling piece of it. But I really just love working with people, helping them become better together as well as individually. And lately, a passion of mine has really been to reach underserved populations who need help, but they can't afford it. So that's why I've developed coupleslearn.com. It's a membership-based site that offers tons of resources for people to get help in their relationship, but it doesn't cost a fortune like oftentimes couples therapy can. And then just a little bit about me personally. I live in Los Angeles, California, where it's always sunny and amazing. I love to take advantage of that weather by hiking, taking workout classes. I love Pilates. I love yoga. And I'm a big country music fan, so I also enjoy attending concerts when I can, though it's pretty hard to get into country concerts here in LA. You'd be surprised how quickly they sell out. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm just going to jump right into our topic for today. This is something people write to me about all the time: problems in communication. And one thing I really wanted to touch on today was how much of communication is actually gender based. So, this is really a presentation that's going to be geared towards heterosexual couples with the typical male female combination. Um, while this is, of course, stereotypical and not 100% across the board true for every male or every female, the characteristics I'm describing, you'll generally see with a good portion of the males out there, and you'll generally see with a good portion of the females out there. Of course, there's exceptions, and some men may fall more into the category of the female attributes that I'm talking about, and some females may fall more into the male attributes. So by no means is this a one size fits all, but it definitely does help a lot of times for many people to hear these gender differences and go, oh, okay, that happens to everybody. It's not just our relationship. So I'm just going to get right into it here with difference number one. This is definitely the biggest difference. Men are fixers, women are feelers. I hear this all the time in therapy. So what exactly does that mean? It means that when a man hears about a problem, he wants to solve it. And he doesn't just want to solve it like at some point. He wants to solve it now so that we can stop talking about it. And women want to do the exact opposite. They want to talk about it. They want to hash out all the details. They want to talk about how it makes them feel, all the gory details about all of that. And then they want empathy for all of that. They don't necessarily want a solution. Sometimes they do, But more often than not, they just want somebody to listen to them, to tell them it's going to be okay, and to validate their feelings and say, you're not crazy. I get that. I understand why you feel that way. So, men, when you're trying to solve the problems, I know your intention is good. It's to protect and serve because that's what men want to do. They want to protect their woman and they want to make her happy. But often, unfortunately, those really nice attempts are considered invalidating. They might make your woman feel like you're not empathizing with her. And she might end up feeling really hurt. And you might hear her say, you just don't listen to me. So if you're hearing that a lot, you might be trying to fix rather than just allow her to feel. And that's something that you might want to take a look at. Now, another thing that can happen is, so a man is suggesting one thing after the other, like, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Why don't you try this? Why don't you do that? And his woman, who might not be looking for a solution, might be rejecting his solutions left and right and continuing to talk about her feelings. This might lead the man to feeling like he's being rejected and he might get frustrated or he might get hurt. So he doesn't know that she doesn't want him to solve her problems. So when she's rejecting solution after solution, he's going to feel like, what the heck? Does she think I'm an idiot? Why won't she let me help her? So that's a common thing that comes up. So let me give you an example of that. So Sally comes home from work after a long, irritating day at the office, and she collapses into a pile on the couch and goes, "Oh, I'm so glad to be home." So her husband, John, senses that she's a little upset, and he goes, "Honey, what's wrong?" So Sally launches into this whole story wrought with emotion about how her jerk of a boss yelled at her today, and he did it in front of the whole office, and she didn't even deserve to be yelled at. And she says, "I was just so angry and so embarrassed, and I felt so powerless to do anything about it." So John's appalled, and he's upset at hearing how his wife was treated. And he says, "Did you report him to HR yet? We've talked about this before, and they really need to know how inappropriate he is when he's upset." And Sally says, "No, I don't want to lose my job. I'm worried I will if I report him, and we can't afford that right now." So John says, "Then it's time you look for a new job. I'm sick of hearing these stories. It's not okay for you to be treated like that at work." Sally looks at John and she's getting more and more frustrated. And she says, "It's not always that bad. And the pay's great. And we can't afford for me to change jobs right now. I can't lose benefits. I have maternity leave. The baby's on the way. It's just not a good time. So we both know that. I'm just going to put up with it." And John's like, okay, now he's getting annoyed because he keeps telling her what to do, giving her all these great suggestions in his mind, and she's just throwing them out the window. So he says, "Fine, if you're not going to do anything about the situation, I don't know why you keep bringing it up." So now Sally's feeling hurt and misunderstood. She storms out of the room, leaving John annoyed and wondering what he said or did to upset her. All right, does this sound familiar to you people? Yeah, I thought so. So a lot of times people think it's the issue that they're discussing that's leaving them frustrated and leading to these fights. It's not. It's the pattern of communication. So John has the best of intentions here trying to solve this problem for Sally. And he just wants to see her feel good. Like he doesn't want his wife to come home after work and say how dejected she is and how hurt she is and how she's been mistreated by this man at work. Like his protective instincts are kicking in. And he's like, "I want to fix this." But Sally, there is no solution per her. The solution is stay and grin and bear it. And she's fine with that solution, but she also wants some sympathy and support from John for it. This is where they're crossing, where their lines are getting crossed because he thinks she's coming to him for a solution when in reality, she's already thought of the solution. She knows she wants to stay at her job. She just wants to be held and comforted and for him to say, "I'm sorry, baby. I know that guy's a jerk. I wish I could do something about it. I wish he didn't treat you that way. And thank you so much for all that you're doing for our family. I appreciate that you're staying in this job, even though you feel this way, because it's what's best for our baby." whoa, what a different reaction, right? Both are coming from a place of love. Both are coming from a place of wanting to help. But if you're a woman listening to that reaction right now, you will feel so much more loved, so much more supported, and just really in tuned and engaged with your husband. So just some thoughts here as, some alternative solutions. So let's talk about the solution for difference number one. Sometimes just keeping this difference in mind when you discuss problems together is enough. So this allows you to have empathy. It allows you to know that the responses are coming from love. So in this case, it would be Sally would know that even though John is trying to solve her problems and she feels really invalidated, he's actually trying to help in his own way. And so she could look at him and say, babe, thank you so much for your concern. I know you want me out of there. I don't think it's the right decision for me right now, but I can hear that you're concerned and I really appreciate that. Right? So just knowing that his suggestions are coming from love rather than frustration can make a big difference. So that's number one. Number two is if the man is offering a solution and she really just wants him to listen, she should let him know. So Sally could say, John, I get that you really want me to make a change, and I know that it's hard for you to hear this, and you probably feel pretty helpless not being able to do anything, but I really just need you to listen. So come here, give me a hug, tell me it's all going to be okay, and that's all I really need from you. He might be like, okay, this is crazy. That's not doing anything. But again, as long as he understands the differences and can say, okay, this is what my wife needs from me right now, then you guys will both be better off. And then the third thing is more of a preventive solution. So as a female, if you know you're about to bring something up, let your man know if you want to have a feelings conversation or a fixing conversation. So you can say something like, babe, I need your advice on this. Da, 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 da. Here's the situation. Or you can say, I just need to tell you how I'm feeling about a situation. I'm not looking for advice. I'm not looking for any help. I'm just looking to be held and comforted. That might sound a little cheesy, but sometimes you got to ask for what you want. Your husbands and wives and boyfriends and girlfriends are not mind readers, and expecting them to be causes a lot of issues in relationships. Okay, so that is difference number one. Now let's go into difference number two. Men need space when women need attention. So this really goes into how people deal with stress. Men and women deal with stress totally differently, and unfortunately, they're pretty opposite, so they can both feel really unsupported and misunderstood in times when they need each other most. Times of stress are hard, and they're even harder when you're feeling unsupported by your partner. So this is going to be a great thing to kind of go through, to talk about with your partner if they're not on the call with you right now, and really let your partner know how you deal with stress and how they can best support you when you're dealing with it. Okay, so typically men deal with stress by becoming disconnected and distancing themselves and going into their man cave or pulling back a little bit emotionally until they've had time to work through and often solve the issue. So you might see if you guys get in a fight, your man might not want to talk about it all that much. He might pull away, and then he might just come back and pretend like everything's fine. Now, this is a difference in how people deal with issues in a relationship, and that's kind of a separate thing that you can talk about. But I'm just saying, if you find that he's constantly coming back and all of a sudden everything's fine and you're like, what just happened? What happened is he went into his man cave and he figured things out on his own, and then he came back and he was fine. Women, however, want to do things totally differently. Women tend to deal with stress by talking about it, by becoming more involved with the person, and often they become emotionally overwhelmed. So this can look pretty different, and I'm going to give you an example on how this can play out in real life. Okay, so Brian and Mary have been married for over a year now, and while they're very much in love, they've been feeling a little bit distant from each other lately. Brian's under stress at work because he's going for a big promotion and he's taking on more responsibilities in an effort to impress his boss. And Mary is dealing with her mother's dementia and taking care of her several days per week. So Brian comes home from work. He's feeling really drained and really anxious, and he's wondering if he did well on this big presentation that he had to give in front of his boss today. Mary comes home right around the same time from a long day of caring for her mom, and she's just feeling really sad because her mom's deteriorating a lot, and Mary's really scared about losing this woman who means the most to her out of anything in the world. Okay, so you kind of get their two mindsets. So Mary walks in the door, and Brian has just walked in the door himself. And she's like, "Oh my God, I remember you had that big presentation today. How did it go?" And she gives him a hug and a kiss. And he's like, I think it went well. And then he sits down on the couch and he turns on the game. So she's thinking, okay, that's not very nice of him. But she still tries to connect. And she's like, I saw mom today. She barely remembered who I was when I walked in. And she's really sad and she's looking down and kind of dejected. So Brian looks at her momentarily and he's like, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry." And then he goes back to watching the game. Mary tries again. "So did your boss say anything after the presentation?" And Brian's like, "Yeah, he said I did a good job, but you know how he is. He's so hard to read." And then he says, "Hey, babe, I'm just going to catch the highlights of the game for a bit before dinner, okay?" So now Mary's like, what the heck? Why doesn't this guy want to talk to me? Like, what did I say wrong? But she's like, all right, I guess I'll go prepare dinner then. So now she's hurt. She's feeling brushed off, and she feels like Brian is being completely uncaring and unsensitive because she's reached out to him a few times and he's brushed her off a few times now. So this is not Brian being a jerk. This is another classic gender difference at play. Brian's just come home from a really stressful day and he needs a few minutes or maybe even a few hours to unwind on his own before starting to get emotionally involved with anything. Mary, on the other hand, has come home from this stressful day, and the first thing she needs is to get connected emotionally, to get support emotionally. Okay, so let's talk about the solution to this. So men's natural instinct, like I said, is to pull back and clear their mind doing something easy or mindless, and then tackle their problem and solve it. Women, they need to talk about it in detail, and they really won't feel better until they've had the chance to do so. They need to rehash everything and process all the emotion around it. Okay, so how are they both supposed to get their needs met in the times of stress if they have completely different needs? The answer is compromise. So this might mean that if you're a woman who likes to talk about things as soon as you get home, you might have to, or as soon as your husband gets home, if you're already home, you might have to wait like 30 more minutes before you get to discuss your feelings about your stressful day. And men, you might have to decompress a little less than you would like before interacting with your girlfriend or wife in order to make sure that she doesn't feel neglected. So, women, I would suggest asking your man how much time he needs to decompress after he gets home. Now, this won't necessarily be something he's thought of in the past. So if he doesn't know, I'd say give him at least 20 minutes after he walks in the door to do his own thing. Approach him, hug and a kiss hello if that's your normal thing. But I wouldn't be like, asking him a lot of questions, kind of all up in his grill. Really just give him some time to come to you. Do your own thing, stay busy, and then when he's ready to engage, he'll come in and talk to you. Another thing that you can do is schedule errands or workout classes or a happy hour with your girlfriends after work to give your man some alone time in the house before you get home. This will give him decompression time. And if you're having happy hour with your girlfriends, then it's going to give you time to hash out the stresses of the day and, also kind of help take the burden of being your only emotional support off of your man's shoulders and spread it out along, your man, your friends, your family, like use everybody for support. And then men, be really clear with your woman about how much time you need to yourself after a long day. So kind of start listening to yourself and realizing how you're feeling and notice, Okay, how long do I usually feel like I need to decompress in front of the TV or go to the gym by myself or whatever your thing is that you do to decompress? How long do you need to do that before you're ready to engage emotionally with your woman? And when you are ready to talk, make sure that you're really there. You're listening intently, you're empathizing with her, and you're really letting her know how much you appreciate her love and support. Okay, so those are my solutions. And the other thing, too, that I didn't write on here, men, if you need time to decompress after work, and you know if you go home right away that your wife's going to have a million things for you to do or need help with the kids or whatever, then schedule some workout time after work or schedule a time to just go for a walk for 10 or 15 minutes, whatever you need to decompress before you go home so you can be your best self when you walk in that door. Okay. Difference number 3, men need to do stuff while women need to talk about stuff. So out of all the differences, I would say this one is probably the least pronounced because there's definitely a lot of men out there that like to talk about stuff, and there's definitely a lot of women out there that like to do stuff. That said, men typically tend to feel closer and more validated through shared activities. So they want to do fun, active, physical stuff with the woman they love. They're usually happiest in their relationships when they're out doing things like riding bikes with their woman or watching the game with their woman or playing sports or hiking and things like that, taking on different hobbies together. And then, of course, sex is a huge way that men feel close to their women. And oftentimes, sex is their main way of connecting. So it's important also to keep in mind, women, that when your man is initiating sex, it's not just about sex. If you're in a connected relationship, it's about him wanting to be close to you and wanting to connect to you. It's his way of saying, I love you and I want to feel close to you. So sometimes that's helpful as far as if you're not in the mood and you really don't want to have sex, it's like, it's nice to think of it, well, he's trying to be close to me. He's trying to connect to me. And that might make you a little more likely to want to connect. So women usually feel closer and more validated through communication, through intimate sharing of feelings and experience, and through emotional closeness. Unfortunately, a lot of men tend to find sharing emotions uncomfortable and overwhelming. So, as I said earlier, a lot of women do really enjoy physical activities and sex just as much as men, but they might not derive the same feeling of closeness from the experience if it doesn't also involve sharing emotions. Okay, so what's the solution? The solution is going out and doing fun things together to keep your relationship fun and fresh, but they also need to be fun for everybody. So find a balance between staying in and having intimate conversations over a candlelight dinner at home, as well as, going out and riding bikes along the beach path or things like that. Okay, so the solution I've got here is to make a list of activities or date nights that you can share with your partner. Both partners should make their own list, and the list should have at least 10 to 15 items on it and include items from all of the following categories. So you want to include things that you already do with your partner, things you used to do with your partner but don't do anymore, and things you have never done with your partner but you would like to. Then, once you've each gotten your lists and you've gone through them and exchanged lists, choose one item per week from the list to do together. So you can combine both your lists. And then rotate which list you choose from each week so that you both get to do activities that make you feel close to one another. They don't need to be extravagant. They don't need to be time consuming. They don't need to be super elaborate date ideas, although some can be. But they should be something that you want to do with your significant other that will help you feel closer to them. Okay, so let's go through some examples. Make me dinner and dessert. Sit and talk to me about your vision for the future. Go hiking with me. Go to a yoga class with me. Watch the game with me. Take me to a theme park. Ask me about my day and listen actively for at least 20 minutes. Okay, so you can see that some of these are active, going out and doing things, and some of these are more sitting and connecting and talking about feelings. And it's really good to have some shorter activities to do in weeks when you're really pressed for time, and then some longer activities to do when you have more time to spend with each other. But definitely make sure to do something together at least once per week that allows you to feel connected to one another. This is a huge deal, you guys. So many people, when they're married, they don't, or just in long-term relationships, they don't date anymore. They don't make time to talk to each other, to really connect with one another. They talk about the day-to-day stuff, but they don't talk about, what their passions are, what their dreams are. It's almost like you feel like you know all that stuff about people already, but it's always good to recheck in with your significant other and figure out what's going on with them these days, what's new, how are they feeling at work, how are they feeling about the kids, all of that stuff. Okay, so last but not least, questions or comments. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and stop the recording, and I will take any questions or comments offline. So I want to thank you all so much for being on this recording. Let me go ahead and make myself active here, and there we go. Okay. So I wanted to just say thank you so much for joining me on this today. Since you're watching the recording, this will be up in a number of different places, but I hope you found it helpful. And I hope you really got a sense of sometimes when maybe your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend might have been trying to be kind in their own way, and you maybe misread it as insensitive or not listening or things like that. So I'm hoping that this really helped you understand some of those classic gender differences, how they might be coming up in your relationship, and how you can deal with them. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can email me at drsarah@coupleslearn.com. And I hope you all have a wonderful day, night, weekend, whenever you're watching this. All right, take care.